Hi, everybody. So excited to be here yet again. I want to welcome you to the Rockstar Coach Brand Club. I'm Melissa Henry. I'm your host. And I am so excited today because I get to interview my friend. And listen, this woman, she simply radiates energy, and you're going to see that throughout the show today. Her name is Kristen Coffield. She's an author, educator, and culinary disruptor. She teaches purpose-driven humans how to turn their habits and what's on the end of their fork into superpowers. As the founder of the CulinaryCure.com, she simplifies health into doable daily habits that hold the key to enhanced wellness, disease prevention, and contribute to living younger, longer, and better. Kristen's been featured on shows like Great Day Washington, Fox 5, News Channel 8, and in magazines like The Washingtonian, Women's Health, Working Mothers, A Mother, among others. And she does have a book that's called How Healthy People Eat, which is an eater's guide to healthy habits. So today we're going to dive into how Kristen built her strong coaching brand in the wellness industry, plus dive into her suggestions on how you can create a lifetime of wellness for yourself. So without further ado, let's all welcome Kristen Coffield to the Rockstar Coach Brand Club.
Thank you, Melissa. I am so happy to be here. And I love what you're doing because you're giving women tools they can use to build their brands, but also build their personal lives at the same time. And that's so important. These things are not separate. You know, you are your brand. And so it's really important to take care of your personal self the same way you take care of your brand. And this is a big mistake that so many of us make. So my personal story and journey, when I was in my mid-50s, I had a series, I guess you could call them a series of unfortunate events. I had a decade of things really go wrong. So my mother's breast cancer came back. My father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. There were some problems in my marriage. I had something happen to both of my daughters, and I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and then my dog died. It was just like 10 years where every day I would just kind of wake up and be like, okay, you know, what you got for me today, universe? And many women find themselves at a period like this in their lives. It just happens. Life's a tough sport. Stuff happens, and we need to be resilient in the face of changes and challenges. So when I found myself at this place, my last kid went off to college, and we had some crushing financial debt, you know, crushing to the point where we sold our home to pay tax debt. Yeah. Wow. The home we raised our kids in. And obviously that caused challenges in my marriage. I had always had a food-related business. So I had a catering company for years. I catered congressional fundraisers. Then I created a company that made meals for high performance individuals and athletes. So this is like long before, you know, Blue Apron or any of those things. And I kept finding these niches. But then I had like these 3 kids, and I had these challenges. And what happens is when your life gets complicated, it gets smaller. You just don't have enough bandwidth for all the things. So you start kind of like tightening up and getting smaller. And there was a point at which I literally woke up, and my first thought was, I can't wait to go back to sleep. And now I know that was probably a sign of depression. But I'm a fighter, and you know, one day I woke up and I was like, oh my God, there's no more rope. I am at the end of my rope. Here I am. I'm at the end of my rope. There's no more rope. So you have a choice in that moment, and it's you either thrive or die. You know, what are you going to do? So in that moment, I'm like, okay, I can't control all of this stuff that's going on in my personal life and my world, but I can control what's on the end of my fork. So I started there, and because food has always been my medium, I had the catering company. I had this, I've been giving cooking classes, food, it's always my thing. It's love. Food is love. Food is, feeding your family. It's entertaining your friends. It's celebration. It's everything. So I started with food, and I made a commitment to myself that I wasn't going to put anything in my body that wasn't going to serve me. And when life gets complicated, you can find yourself in a routine where you get up in the morning, you have a cup of coffee, you have a bagel, you have a yogurt, you think you're doing healthy for yourself. You run through your day, you maybe have a second cup of coffee, you open the wine at 4:30 or 5, and before you know it, you're having cheese and crackers for dinner, and, end of story. We all know what that looks like. We've all been there. Everyone's done that at one point or another. So I'm at this point, I'm only putting healthy stuff in my body. And guess what? I'm still not sleeping, but I'm starting to have more energy and feel more resilient. So now I can go to the gym. Oh, now I'm going to the gym. Wow, my body's really changing. Now I really have more energy. I'm going to the gym. Now I'm starting to sleep better. So all of these things built on top of each other. So my personal story is, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. My world fell apart, and you would not know it. Anybody from the outside looking in would look at me and think, oh, she leads a charmed life. She lives in a nice neighborhood. Her kids go to private school. She got a cute husband. From the outside looking in, my life probably looked perfect. From the inside, it was awful. It was awful. So that's where the Culinary Cure started. It started when everything fell apart. I had nowhere else to go. I had to fall back on the things that I did well, which was always food related. And I started feeding myself better. And then that led to me going to the gym. That led to me getting better sleep. And then you feel a little bit more confident when you wake up and you feel like, gosh, yeah, I can handle these challenges. So that's how my brand, the Culinary Cure, started. Food was my medicine. It was my cure. And I built a brand around this because I knew if I was going through this experience, other women were experiencing the same thing, and nobody wrote the playbook. Now this was a decade ago. And so social media, we're all on social media now, trying to make it work for us. But I can tell you, my children were horrified.
Huh, really?
They were horrified. They're like, what? You're going to try to build an online brand? That's so funny, Mom, So, yeah.
I love it. You know what I love about what you just said? Like the story is amazing and how you kind of pulled yourself out of that. But also, what I love is that this kind of came about, as you say, sort of organically, because it came from the problems that you were solving for yourself. And then the fact that you recognize that others would benefit from that. I mean, that's where we all start with our brand, with our personal brand. Like that's the passion behind it is what motivates us and gets us to take those steps to actually, get online and start talking about your business. Like, ooh, that's scary the first few times we do that, right? So I appreciate you talking about that and bringing that back to the brand. It's great. And I want to say too, guys, as you're listening, and just for all of you guys out there watching the live stream here, we've got people in the room with us. We've got Suzanne, we've got JD here, and Ruth. Ruth, you guys, is coming out with her new book. So if you subscribe to me on my newsletter list, you're going to start seeing some information about that. And Afi is here. Afi just got her headshots done. She's looking gorgeous. Annalise is here. Gabrielle, Pamela, Dan. Did I call everyone? I hope I did. Let's see. It looks like I did. Okay, great. So yeah, and if you want to be on the show, you need to register to get the link to be in the Zoom room with us, because this is where you're going to get your questions answered. So any one of you guys that are with us today, pop your questions into the chat as we go, and we'll pause here and there to get them answered. So let's go into the next subject here. And this, I want to just talk a little bit about your personal brand, Kristen, because I want to know like the good, the bad, the ugly. All right. So tell me, what was kind of the most important thing that you feel you learned by building this personal brand for your business?
Well, first, I want to tell everybody that I made every mistake you could make when you build a brand. So when I started doing this, it really started as kind of a passion project because I've always been into food and I wanted to create some recipes. And right when all that horrible stuff happened, once I changed my energy, so I think I should just talk about energy for a little bit. Once I changed my energy, I was able to kind of get out of my own little pity party. As awful as all of that stuff was, your mindset is so important. You need to guard your mindset as you grow your brand, because you could absolutely lose your mind looking at what other people are doing and thinking you're supposed to be doing that. And
God, yes.
it takes you away from where you need to be. So I made every mistake you could make. And let me tell you, I had no special skill set. When I started to build my brand, I had no money because we had just sold our house. So there was nothing for me to pay anybody with. I didn't have any particular training in online anything. So I had to learn everything from the ground up. So I made every mistake you could. I spent ridiculous amounts of money on coaching programs that were not worth what I paid for them. I think I did it backwards too. So I was able to get myself a lot of publicity, but I didn't have a lot to publicize. So I got myself on TV and I got myself in magazines and I was able to do all this, but I hadn't really honed down on what it was I was selling to make money. And because I had another job, I had gotten this other job, I had a little bit of luxury to indulge myself in that. And it felt pretty good, being on Good Morning Washington or Fox or whatever. I'm like, whoa, look at me, I'm a rock star. Well, I don't know that I've ever gotten a single paying client through my TV appearances. And I've done over 100 of them.
Wow. At least you don't know that directly. It wasn't somebody.
There's no way,
but I saw you there.
But what it has done is when people Google me, it does validate me as an expert. So I did it backwards. So I want to take this back to, if you want to build a successful brand, you need to really hone in on what it is you're selling. So I didn't do that. Although I'd had a successful catering company, I had had successful businesses before. I was so overwhelmed with all of the options with social media and all of this. You can't help yourself. You get on Instagram and you're like, oh my God, I should do that. And you're on LinkedIn, you're like, oh my God, I should do that. And I didn't invest in the one thing that I really should have. So I did eventually get an amazing graphic designer. So I have a graphic designer who hosts my website. That's money. You can't not spend that money. So that's the number one thing you've got to have, is a functional, optimized website. So it's mobile optimized and people can Google it and find you. And you've got, at least you tell people what you do. So I did that, but I didn't invest in the right kind of coaching. So I bought these big splashy programs, and we've all seen them. We all see them all the time. And the problem with that is, when I was building my brand, I really needed somebody to be telling me what the next logical step for me was, where I was. So I'm like, oh, great, I'm on TV. Oh, I need a book. So now I'm going to write a book, right?
Yes.
And so what happens is you sometimes put the cart before the horse. The most important thing is understanding what is your business. And it should come out of a passion. It should come out of something you love to do. And how are you going to make money doing it? Because if you're not making money, it's a very expensive hobby. And your goal is to make money, because you have to spend money to run your business. Sure, you don't have a brick and mortar store, but you still have an online presence. You're still paying someone, unless you're a techie genius, to host your website and SEO optimize things for you. So there's things that I should have spent money on earlier that would have helped me make money sooner.
Absolutely. And I think when we talked about this pre-show, you were saying that the help that you finally got, not just the graphics or the website, but really sort of like diving into what were the elements of the brand that would then create that website that would then convert. So
Right.
talk just a little bit about that too, like what was so important about that work for you and for building a business that is actually sustainable and
And let's
thriving.
just say this is 10 years,
Yeah, of
and
course.
5 of them I probably didn't, probably like I did all the wrong things in those first 5 years. And you know what? The most profound discovery that I kind of came to just recently was I do a 21-day detox and reset, and I host it twice a year. And it's a wildly successful program for me and for the people who take it. It's an entry-level program that really helps people get the basics of what they need to have a healthy life, to have the energy for the life that they're building and the brand that they're building. So I do that twice a year. I do that in January and I do that in September. And at the end of my last program, people are like, hey, Kristen, I can't wait until September. Like, I need something else between now and September. And so what I wasn't doing, and this is another, I think today's program is going to be about learning from Kristen's mistakes.
But that's the best kind of learning, isn't it?
Right?
Yes.
So I really didn't have a year calendar for what my stream of income needed to look like.
Mm.
So I had these two. At first, I thought I was going to run my 21-day detox and reset 4 times a year. And I think I did that one year, and it was like, I didn't like it. It was too much for me. It was too boring. I was just going from the same program to the same program. And what I discovered is, people needed other things. So figuring out what your customer wants and needs, and especially once you've taken them, like, you've gotten them in and you've given them some training or you've helped them build something, what do they need next? So now we've got a whole year of programs, and you can join the Culinary Cure. You can meet me at any place. Maybe you just want to buy my book, and then maybe you want to do one of my detoxes or one of my free webinars. But maybe you do the detox once or twice, and then you want some personal coaching. So we've built a whole year of programming so that anytime somebody needs something that I can offer them, it's ready for them. They don't have to wait. And I think thinking of how you can serve whoever your customer is in ways of varying cost, because sometimes people maybe don't have $1,000, right? But they still need something. So what can you create that gives your customers what they need when they need it? And so we never looked at a whole year picture.
Yeah, yeah. And what I like about that too is just not to, and what I want to layer on that on top of that too is not to get super overwhelmed about creating that all at once either, because you said, hey, I started here, then I layered on this detox, then I figured out the next step was, creating something new and then having this level or these graduating ways that people can work with you. So it was, again, kind of this organic process, but really it was that you understood what people needed, like you were paying attention to what were your ideal clients saying to you. And that's the thing, is you understood who those clients were. So I love that. And I want to kind of shift gears just a little bit and like get us into sort of the wellness space, which is where you are, obviously the expert about. So when we were planning this interview out, we talked about the goal for everyone should be to stay out of the medical system. So I want you to tell us a little bit about like, how do we do this?
Right. And this is so important. And this is another thing that happens to solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, brand builders, is we get so focused on this business part, it's really hard to separate your personal and your professional life. It's not like you're going to an office, or maybe you are going to an office and then you're coming home and working on your brand. When you look at wellness as kind of like the super glue that holds you and your brand together, the wellness you give yourself personally is the same kind of care you need to give your brand. So what happens to so many people is they start to build businesses and brands and they neglect their health. They're like, oh my God, I worked for 14 hours. Where'd the day go? One of the big things that I always talk about is hydration. So I build all of my wellness programs on hydration. And this is a real problem when we're spending all day or a lot of our day in front of a computer. So the electromagnetic energy that basically is in our environments is very dehydrating. And what most of us don't realize is that we're already walking around partially dehydrated. Hydration is a tricky thing.